Hello, welcome to this video. You might hear some comments from someone else during this video because we have a special guest. Hi. Say hi, sweetie. Oh, you really know how to work a camera, don't you? She is quite vocal sometimes, so you might hear her sometimes. So, I saw a video critiquing some artists for making school shooter OCs, and to be honest, I don't fully see the problem with it. Like, isn't art supposed to reflect the times? This is a huge problem that we are dealing with as a society right now, and in my mind, it makes sense that artists would want to tell stories about that. We didn't have a problem with pumped up kicks or movies about school shooters, so why OCs? It's just a different form of storytelling, in my opinion. Like, in a video that I'll mention later here, the creator mentioned scrolling through TikTok and going from a Breaking Bad edit to one of these OCs and that would shock him. But why? Like, Breaking Bad is about a high school teacher making meth to afford his cancer treatment, and that's a dark ass subject too. Not to mention that Breaking Bad contains plenty of murders as well. So why is that story acceptable, but a story about a school shooter is not? For today's drawing, I will not be drawing a school shooter OC because that would kind of defeat my whole point of the video, but I'll get into that later. Instead, I will be drawing fan art of BoJack Horseman, which might seem a little bit off topic, but I talk about it later in the video, so hopefully it'll become relevant soon. So that will be spliced in between here, like with my other videos, so enjoy! So anyway, of course, there is some nuance to be had in this discussion. Like, obviously, the way you handle an OC of this nature shows if it's okay or not. I think, first off, calling them OCs is what people initially have a problem with. Instead, if someone would say, this is a character in my story who shoots up a school, people would have less of a problem with it. I think because there's context around it, which, again, I'll get deeper into later. But I think fictional stories based on real life tragedy should have a place in the art world. And OC just kind of implies that you like the character or that you think they're cool. Also, that it's maybe not as serious and there won't be much narrative exploration for the character. This is not the case for everyone's OCs, of course. Some people do a lot of research and handle these subjects with a lot of care. So I think it's a little bit unfair to put these labels on a person's character just because it is labeled as an OC, which is like an internet term, you know? I also think that this is a way for young artists to process how fucked up the world is right now. This might be a little bit of a goofy comparison, but I feel like it's similar to those Roblox and Gacha Life animations where the characters cheat on each other and they're like suicidal and stuff. Those are really heavy subjects, and the kids that are making those don't fully understand those subjects. But kids start understanding the world by playing pretend. Sometimes that's on the playground, sometimes it's through animations or drawings online. The only difference is that it's so public now that adults get to look at it through adult eyes. I think that if my pretend stories from the playground got posted, there would be some critique. Apart from that, I think telling relevant stories is important, and these types of stories are really relevant right now. But that's also why I'm not drawing my own school shooter OC right now. I'm not telling a story. I would not be doing anything useful with it. If I would feel so inclined, I would feel no moral barricades in writing a story about a school shooter and therefore, I guess, making a school shooter OC. But making one just for the sake of it makes no sense to me. And that's where I feel comfortable critiquing these characters. I feel like some of them were obviously made only to be as edgy as possible, to give the character the most troubled background and to make them do one of the worst things that an individual can do. And these characters, as well as the real people who do these things, are often very young. Around the same age as the people making those OCs, which I guess makes them more relatable, but let's be so for real, no one is going to shoot up a school because they saw a cool school shooter OC on Twitter. Also, side note, the original artist asked people to stop making fun of the body of the character, and people make fun of the artist in return for being too sensitive. And yeah, it's kind of funny that they tried their absolute best to make the edgiest character ever and then got offended so easily, but I do think their point about this is valid, honestly. There are people in real life who look like this, who have his body type. You can critique the art, but I feel like it's just unnecessary to make fun of a completely unrelated characteristic that normal people have in the normal world. Another critique is that the character who got the most attention was portrayed as not very conventionally attractive and honestly a bit gross with them drooling and all. But honestly, I think that the character would have gotten the same amount of criticism if they had been attractive. In a different way, obviously, because then they would be romanticizing it and trying to drum up more sympathy for the character. by making them attractive. But then the joke OCs that people made were also critiqued for being attractive and putting too much effort in. I don't know. I originally heard about these OCs from Mohammed Abdabi's video, and I usually really like his videos and his takes on subjects, but this one just didn't really hit in my opinion. It bugs me that Mohammed was making fun of the joke design, saying it's ridiculous that the OC thinks he could solve the problem of too many poor people in his school by becoming a school shooter, but that's the whole joke of the OC. To be clear, this OC was a direct reaction to the original OC and very obviously a joke. Mohammed even says he feels like a lot of effort was put into the drawing, but the original artist even commented on the video saying that it was made on a whim at 4 a.m. But honestly, that was pretty obvious to me by just looking at the video. Like, literally, what was he doing? He usually makes really good critiques, in my opinion, so I don't know what happened here. I feel like in Mohammed's video, he got so close to the point I'm trying to make, but he backtracks and says that making a character like this is bad regardless of how you handle it because they kill children. But dude, lots of characters kill children, and we don't have a problem with it because they are fictional characters. Where has the media literacy gone? And I understand that there's some nuance because these characters are often based off of real school shooters, but dude, most killers in TV or movies are also based off of real killers. Some people said you shouldn't write about school shooters because it's so concretely based in reality. But you can make the same argument about murderers in stories or people who assault people or people who use slurs. Like, that is all based really concretely in reality. But fiction reflects real life, always. Are we supposed to only write stories about the good and happy things in life? That, first of all, wouldn't make very interesting stories, and also wouldn't say anything about the world we live in. Art is supposed to be hard to deal with sometimes. It's supposed to make you question things and maybe even make you a bit uncomfortable. Why does there need to be a redemption for the character? Why does it need to end all well and good? That's not how the world works. And these characters are obviously not written for a SpongeBob episode. They have dark themes for a mature audience. And about that audience, some people have been saying that you can't make these characters because it causes a trauma response in those affected by these issues who might have been involved in a school shooting. I fully respect how hard it must be to go through something like that, and I could never imagine having to deal with such trauma. But honestly, I don't think that this is a valid reason to never speak about these issues in a story. I think that's just showing how important it is to keep talking about these issues. Like, should we also not write stories about people abusing substances because people might get triggered, or stories involving car accidents or SA? These are all horrible things that should be handled with care. But in my opinion, they should absolutely not be avoided fully in stories. Many of these stories about such topics, in fact, help people process their trauma. My main point is that I think saying that you should never write about a certain subject makes absolutely no sense. Some people are literally saying there is no reason to write about school shooters. What do you mean there's no reason? Then you could also say there's no reason to write about homophobia or violence against women because they're horrible things done by horrible people. Here's where bojack Horseman comes in. I know, a little bit goofy, but bear with me. One of my favorite shows, bojack Horseman, has a horrible main character. Spoilers ahead, I guess, for bojack Horseman, but he is consistently an asshole. Towards the end of the show, he abandoned someone who he low-key groomed and then gave drugs to her while she was clean, then let her die alone. He also tried to have sex with a minor, just to name a few things. He's objectively a horrible person. But should that show also not exist? Again, this first character, this school shooter OC, was not handled with care at all. And yes, critique that character. Critique the artist who made it. Because bojack Horseman does handle these things with care, in my opinion, and does frame bojack as being a horrible person. And you could argue that presenting this school shooter OC and making art about it without any context could be showing them in a more positive light, which is not good, obviously. But it could also be an interesting exploration because these people who do these horrible things will obviously see themselves as a good person, or that what they're doing is necessary, or, you know, like, it's more complicated than just frame them as a horrible person, which, yes, it's a horrible thing to do, obviously, but these people don't think of themselves like that, which could be interesting to explore in a story. So just saying that you should never ever do it, I think is unfair. So telling every artist that telling stories about these topics is too far is not helpful in my opinion at all. You should do your research, listen to victims of shootings, and handle heavy subject like this with care. But don't stray away from the subject entirely because you think it's unethical to tell a story about it. Because I truly don't think it is. I kind of use the original OC as a jumping off point to talk about these kinds of conversations, but I do want to make clear that I don't think it's cool at all what this artist did, but I also think that it mostly came from ignorance and trying to be edgy rather than malice. Again, I don't know this artist at all. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about this subject because I feel like people were talking about it with not enough nuance, not the nuance that it deserved, because yes, you should handle these things with care. Yes, this character was not handled with care, but I think people were taking it more as, oh, this is so crazy that this person is doing it, and listen to this art drama and all that kind of stuff, instead of using it as an actual conversation about how to make art about these kinds of things, because people will make art about these kinds of things, and I think they should. There's an argument to be had about like who should be telling these stories. You know, maybe someone who is closer to the subject, like a victim of a school shooter, would maybe understand these subjects better, but putting that responsibility on victims of school shootings I feel like is also not fair at all, which I've noticed with more subjects, that people want stories about certain very heavy subjects to be told about people who have experienced that, and to a certain extent I agree, but then you're also putting the responsibility of education on these marginalized groups or these groups who already have it hard. Anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comments, and I'll see you next week.